Jeffrey, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Donald Newman. I'm a dentist here in Boca Raton, Florida, and I'm pleased to announce that 6 months ago I sold my business. What's remarkable about the sale is that 4 years ago I thought I might go bankrupt. It was with an idea that was presented to me by my web designer that we initiated something to drive patients to my practice. And specifically, it's the emergency dental walk-in concept.
You tried emergency dental walk-ins.
Yes.
Why?
Because we didn't have enough patients.
Okay.
And remarkably, as soon as we put up a sign, emergency dental walk-ins, as soon as we started to advertise for emergency dental walk-ins, we started to have walk-in traffic, and we started to answer our phones, and we had unique visitors coming, and they needed a substantial amount of work. It's an interesting thing about emergencies, Jeffrey. All emergencies need work. And when the emergencies come in, I realized one thing. Don't talk about all sorts of other issues. Don't give comprehensive treatment plans. Patients come in for emergencies and they want to be treated, they want to be taken out of pain, they want to pay their bill, and they want to get out of there. We found that there were several ways of treating these people. Certainly, when they would come in, we would see them promptly and take them out of pain. But outside of that, from building a business, you could either see them once, or from this first exposure to your dental office, you could attempt to foster a relationship. And we found that both avenues of treatment were beneficial to our bottom line.
Okay, so you went from almost bankrupt, and if I remember this right,
yes,
when you sold your practice, it was doing roughly $1 million a year, and almost a third of that was emergency first-time visits?
Our numbers 4 or 5 years ago was $500,000, and at the sale of our business 4 years later, it was $900,000. And I attribute that mostly to the emergency dental walk-in concept that we affiliated ourselves.
What sort of conversion did you get? How many people that would come in for emergencies actually ended up becoming permanent patients?
There were two types of emergencies that would happen. Patients who would come in during working hours would generally, we'd have a conversion rate that was high, maybe 75–80%. But patients that would come in on the weekends, that was far less. Maybe only 10 or 15%. There's a very large niche out there, and I'm going to offer a number which is rather large. I think there's a niche of 50% of the population do not see dentists. This is the niche that requires emergency service. And it's odd, but they feel kind of guilty because they haven't been to a dentist. And with this guilt, they don't seem to have a problem paying for the emergency service. It's one of those things. When they come in on the weekends, you have two choices. You can charge a lot of money and you'll never see them again, and they'll pay. Or you can charge them a lower rate and try and foster a conversion rate to your regular practice. Either way, that would be entirely up to the dentist to determine what's in his best interest.
Okay. Tell me about the oddest emergency that has walked into your doors in 4 years.
Instead of the oddest emergency, when I first started, I didn't want to do with this emergency business. For some reason, it didn't feel right. It had a bad taste. Who wants to come out on the weekends and do emergencies? I'll tell you who. When a patient comes in and falls down a ladder, breaks his front 2 teeth, and you have to put in an immediate provisional bridge, and he gives you $2,200 for this, that's the kind of business I want. Emergency patients need work. Emergency patients will pay. And with that, you'd be surprised. After 6 months, a year, over the dinner table with their friends in a card game, you start harnessing a tremendous referral network from these emergencies. They appreciate it, and you become the talk of the town. You become the emergency dentist of maybe 5 square miles. And people like that. It's a service to the community, and it's a nice payday for the dentist as well.
From a practical perspective, all right, so here I am. I've decided I would like the supplemental revenue that comes in from emergency dentals. It's space in my office that's not earning anything. Now it's earning something. What would be the most critical first step of making sure I capture that emergency patient?
If a dentist is interested in this emergency work, there are ways of maximizing. And it all comes from the telephone. A patient doesn't want an answering machine. They don't want to wait 5 minutes. They don't want a beeper. They want a live person. And it works something like this. A patient calls, they get a live person. It's then transferred to you if you want to receive it. You receive it, it's transferred, you talk to the patient, and then you instruct the patient as to what the fee schedule is. And generally, when they're in pain, they don't ask questions. They'll come right in. You should also take their number. You'll tell them, you give them a specific time, and as soon as possible is the best time. If they call at 2 o'clock, you want to be there at 2:30. And you take their telephone number to ensure that they're prompt, or they might get lost. But there has to be a constant communication for you. And when the patient comes in, you should be equipped with an emergency form, not a whole lengthy form, just an emergency form. The table, your operatory should be ready. You take a quick x-ray, even while they're filling out the form. And then you show them what the problem is. You give them the fee scheduling. They sign a piece of paper that for a consent for treatment, whether it's an extraction or whether it's for a restoration or a pulpectomy or whatever it is. And generally the emergencies will only take about 20 minutes. What we do is we don't come in for under $125. That's the after-hours fee schedule that we use. After that, it basically becomes whatever fee that we're charging for that procedure. We generally will have a slight premium because it is after hours, and generally the average fee for an emergency after-hour patient is between $400 and $500. But again, that's up to the general practitioner to determine how he wants to handle the service. The bottom line is this: you should be receiving a dentist on this service should be receiving anywhere between 30 and 50 new patients a month. Sometimes they'll come in during working hours, sometimes they'll come in after hours. Either way, it's a fantastic flow of new patients and a wonderful source of added revenue. Revenue that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And the referral source, it just keeps spreading and getting larger exponentially. And that's how anybody can grow a practice. You can grow a practice. You can have a very nice, stable practice, and you think you need an associate. I brought in an associate. It took me 6 months to get her busy, 2 days a week, strictly on the emergency business. She handled my emergency business. I didn't touch it. She got the new patients. We got them in. She made added revenue on the weekends, and from this patient base, she became busy 2 days a week. And that's added value to anyone's practice. It's just a beautiful thing. I don't know how viable this is, but I think you could even be a member of the Emergency Dental Walk-In Network, and you can build this practice. It's a business within a business. You have your brick and mortar, and then you have your emergency dental walk-in facility. And let's say you hire another dentist to do this emergency dental walk-in. I would say that after a year, for a very modest subscription fee, you probably can build a business that you can sell for $200,000, $300,000. It's all good business. You're taking the patient out of pain, and you're servicing the community. It's a win-win for everybody. Yeah.
What happens with insurance? Let's be practical. Okay. They come in, they got insurance. Do you care on an emergency that's after hours?
When patients come in for insurance, when patients come in after hours and they have insurance, we plainly say that we do not accept insurance during the weekends. It's either cash or it's a credit card or a check that we can validate. There's no way on the weekends that we can validate their insurance. We also tell them that we're more than happy to file their insurance on the following day, but it's impossible to do it on the weekend. And the patients, it's amazing. It never ceases to amaze me. Rich man, poor man, when it comes to a toothache, everybody's got cash on hand. It was a revelation to me. A toothache knows no boundaries. Patients will dig. They'll ask their friends. They'll ask their grandparents. They'll ask their fathers, their sisters, their brothers, their nieces, family members, and friends. A toothache needs to be treated immediately.
Now, your web presence started you in the emergency business. What else have you done, either online or offline in traditional marketing, to help bring in more and more emergency business?
I'm going to comment on Jeffrey's question because I did something that was kind of bold. In fact, our initiative here, I think, is bold. This tie is bold. So we like to be bold. We like to be pathfinders. That's half the fun. I had a sign. It was a beautiful sign, a neon sign. It said Boca Dental Associates. You want to know what a sign like that means? Boca Dental Associates means, whether we like it or not, whether we've ever thought about it, it means private, stay out, don't walk in, you need an appointment. People are afraid of the dentists. They're very quick to receive this subliminal, and they walk right past the office, not recognizing the fullness of what I just said. I had this idea. Why don't I take a big neon sign, a very large neon sign, and put emergency dental walk-ins, big. Within the first day or two of putting up that sign, we started to get walk-ins on a daily basis. I was in this location for 25 years. We received maybe 5 walk-ins. I used to kid with my landlord, I'm paying top rent, I don't get any walk-ins. How is this possible? What's possible, the reason is the sign was wrong. You have to have a sign that invites people. It doesn't matter what it says. It just has to be inviting. And Boca Dental Associates subliminally says private. Emergency Dental Walk-ins says we're something new. We're servicing the community. One day you might need us. Why don't you come in, say hello, take a look, and take a card, just in case you may need us one day. And when we put the sign up, we became acknowledged as the Emergency Dental Facility of Boca Raton.
Okay, so demographics, Boca Raton, 85,000 people.
Okay.
Okay, and for those who are going to watch this video, they need to figure out what's going to work out for them. Most of your patients come from within how far from your practice?
We find it's an amazing, it's just startling. I'll receive patients from a 200-mile radius. It is shocking, that shocking. But in reality, the majority of our patients come within 3 to a 5-mile radius, and that's about 90%. And then about 5% come within about a 5 or 10-mile radius, and then from there, maybe 2 or 3 out of 100 will come from a distant part of Florida.
Let's talk about how many patients 5 years into this, 4 years into this.
Yes.
How many patients does your practice see before you sold it that were purely emergency?
I would say that our practice grew by 1/3. 1/3 of our practice became emergency patients. But I wanted to tell a story that Jeffrey may be unaware. So it happened, it was a Christmas Eve, and I was doing a crown on a friend of mine, and that was at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was finishing up around 8:45. At 8:45, I had a patient walk in. an emergency on Christmas Eve. I said, okay. We sat the patient down and we did the procedure. It was lucky for me that my friend was also an assistant and a hygienist, and so she started to help me. That Christmas Eve, we started to see one patient after another. 9 patients came in on an emergency basis on that Christmas Eve. I had one of the largest days financially in the history of my practice, and we weren't even scheduled to work that day. Just a remarkable consideration. Advertising, welcoming, answering the telephones, receiving the patients, receiving them promptly, getting them out of pain is a tremendous service to the community and an additional revenue source. And it was through this exercise that I was thankfully able to sell my business, and now I'm engaged in other enterprises, and one of them is providing this subscription service of emergency dental walk-ins.
How comfortable are you with seeing people being the only person in the office? Or are you the only person in the office when people come in on an after-hours emergency?
That's an excellent question, Jeffrey. It's a tough one. I think each one has to measure his own risk tolerance. Generally, I'm not going to see anybody when it gets dark, unless it's a child that falls off a bicycle, or there's a fight and somebody breaks off some teeth. I'm not going to see a wisdom tooth when it's dark. I'm not going to come in for a tooth that needs a pulpectomy. I'm not going to come in with just a single woman. If a single woman calls me up, she has to bring her husband or another individual. I'm just not going to see somebody like that alone. And again, each one of us has to measure what's appropriate to his nature. And to me, and I can't speak for everyone, but if I know there's somebody in pain and I have to take a little risk by seeing them at twilight, my tendency is to see them. But everyone has to call his own shot. We live in a litigious society, and I don't advocate adverse risk taking. I just think you have to be careful and stay within your comfort zone and do what you feel is right. Quite frankly, being a dentist, every patient who comes in there is your friend until something goes wrong. You're the object of a potential malpractice suit at any given time. And each one of us, when we work, we have to stay within our comfort zone, or whether we're going to do restorative, crown or bridge, root canal, third wisdom tooth extractions, biopsies, whatever is in our comfort zone. And the same thing holds true when we see emergencies. There are some emergencies I don't want to see. Believe it or not, we're not besieged by people looking for drugs. But if I do feel like somebody is looking for drugs, I won't see them. It's a private office. I do what I want. I do what I feel is right. And I stay within my own comfort zone. In regards to the advantages of the office, you're seeing patients that you would never, ever have seen before. And it's my interpretation from my 4 or 5 years of experience that in my 5-10 mile radius of a population of 80, we get about 200 unique hits on our website a month. Out of these, 100 pick up the telephone. And out of the 100, 50 give us a call and come in and make an appointment. And these are 50 patients that I would never, ever see. We have to give them instructions, driving instructions. They have no idea even what to expect. They don't know what a root canal is. They don't know what a crown is. And we keep their first visit as palatable as possible. And I tell them that when they leave, they're not going to be in pain. And basically, that's why they're there. That's what they want to hear. And that's what they're prepared to pay their money. They just don't want the pain. But again, these are patients that you would never ordinarily see. And that's the great marketing advantage. And there's something else. If you've got 200 people a month looking for an emergency dentist in this market of 80,000 people, and you've got 300 dentists, imagine if you could have a service that could deliver 25 or 30% of these patients at your doorstep. Your competitors are all trying to get these patients, get new patients. They're putting out flyers, they're advertising, yellow pages, web designers, marketers. They're throwing out their dollars left and right to get in a couple of new patients. They're spending a 1-800-DENTIST. They're throwing out money left and right. We create a niche, an open niche. We drive these patients to your practice. We average around 200 unique hits. 100 people pick up the telephone, and 50 of them come in. 50 new patients. The neat thing about these 50 new patients is that they all need work. They're not coming there for consults. They're not coming there for cleanings. They're not coming there with their children for sealants. These people need work, and it's up to you to convert. They'll pay for the emergency visit, and they'll pay a premium. But after that, it's up to the emergency dentist and the fellowship that he procures, that he develops with that patient in order to convert him into a patient in the practice.